Welcome back to Thanks for Your Concern. You are here with Berenice.
And I'm Ella. Welcome back,
Wow, it feels
Berenice.
like it's been forever since I last talked to ya.
I think it has been forever.
Yeah,
We
a
haven't spoken in
lifetime.
like 3 days.
Whoa. No, because we did pre-record some stuff. We had a little bit of a break there. There were live things going.
Oh God,
But this
everything's
is the
going.
most up-to-date episode we've got yet. But how you been? How was Lollapalooza?
Wow. Okay, let me give the highs before, not the lows, but let me just give the highs. So, this is my first time in Chicago. I stand Chicago. I am a
Yeah.
huge Chicago fan. Like, I love it out there. We went to like Pilsen and we visited the National Museum of Mexican Art. Highly recommend. It was super fun. It was free, okay? And you guys got to check out these local places because, of course, we also went to the Field Museum and the Art Institute of Chicago, but I spent like $48 getting in there. Free museum was amazing.
Yeah.
I also wandered into this bookstore and it's called Soulful, and it's a black owned business that's basically a bookstore, coffee shop, kick it hangout space that's focused on
Okay.
emotional intelligence.
Oh,
And yeah, it was lit. So I walked up in Pilsen. I was fucking chit chatting with everyone. I've never had so many conversations in my entire fucking life. I went into like every business and was just chatting it up. I loved the vibe there. So that was the good. Chicago, I stan. Love Chicago.
Chicago is a great place. There are a certain place where I've gone and I've been like, I could live here. Chicago was
Hmm.
one of those. I think I landed at like 7 a.m. and I was like, because we did like a red eye the first time I went, and I was like happy on the train to just like be out of Seattle. And I remember like this group of, I don't know, them young adults. They saw me and they're like, why is this bitch so happy? And I was like, oh my God, I'm home. Yeah, no, people got spunk there, and it's definitely an interesting place because the culture is really different. It's also like really cold, so like it, this is gonna sound really weird. I did expect Chicago to have more of a homeless population, but then it made a lot of sense that there isn't because it gets really cold in the winter.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
they do bus a lot of the homeless population from Chicago and the East Coast to the West Coast, which is like an actual fact. To get them out of the cold so they can survive. So it has a really interesting like demographic. Chicago overall, I really like a lot. Also cleaner than I thought it was gonna be. Just like a cool city. But I would live there if they had like fashion jobs. I looked into it. I really like Chicago though. I'd recommend Chicago if people have not been. Um,
Oh, yeah, I love it. I'm like ready to move. But then we had this one Uber driver that was like, "Don't do it. It feels like 117 degrees outside in the winter." But besides that, it's a very cool city. So that's the good. The bad, oh my God. Lollapalooza just kind of humbled me with how old my body
yeah.
is. Because I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a hotel right by the entrance, so I'm not doing a shit ton of walking. I'm a sober festy girl, so I was like, I'm gonna be able to like go to bed, wake up the next day, and be able to fucking do the whole thing over and over again. My fucking hips went out like day fucking two. Okay, day two, my hips are like, holy shit. My hips, my legs, my shins, my feet. I was like, holy fuck, like I cannot, I'm literally in pain. And then I was like, okay, well, let me just
Yeah.
take ibuprofen. And so I took a shit ton of ibuprofen. And then I don't know if you've seen like, it rained and I've never been to a muddier
Oh.
event in my entire life. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly, like, I felt bad because I saw these girls in amazing outfits and they're knee deep in mud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah.
prepare for that personally.
Yeah.
Didn't see mud on the fucking weather.
You haven't been to a festival in a minute. You gotta be ready for anything.
I know, it just said sunny, and I mean, I brought like, and it literally didn't even say rain, so like, I mean, it was what it was. I don't think anyone was prepared for the mud. homegirls were out here with all their like dogs out in like little
Mm.
flip-floppies in the mud, and it was a good time. There were some really awesome sets, but I definitely feel it in my body.
Yeah, originally I was supposed to go with Ella to
Hmm.
Lollapalooza, but I did do a few festivals back to back in June. Like, and the way that my body felt coming back from like a weekend and then right another like weekend, it was rough. It took me probably, I would say, like a good month to get back into like my routine because I also have like I caught up with my routine and I was traveling and stuff and my body hurt and I was just like, yo, I don't know if I can do this. And I have like other festivals coming up, so I did choose not to go, which I'm really bummed about because honestly that lineup was incredible. I am so happy that you got to experience it. I lived through you. I lived through you.
It was definitely probably had the most conflicts of any festival I've ever been
Mm,
to, which was, it is what it is. You always expect some conflict, but there was just a shit ton of conflict. So
yeah,
I didn't get to see, and you think, oh, I'm going to see half of a set, and then you get to the venue and you're like, ooh, these stages are 15 minutes
far.
away.
Yeah.
I will say like a highlight is where I'm at Lana Del Rey and I literally have not seen so many sobbing girls smoking cigarettes in my entire life. I literally like I cannot explain to you the amount of like sobbing tears that were going on and everyone was sharing cigarettes. It was just like the Lana vibe. And there's one girl, she was standing next to me. I'm saying she's audibly sobbing, like literally she's having a very emotional experience. And her boyfriend is like, "Are you?" And he's just, "You don't know what this just means to me." And I was like, "Girl, I know what it means. I feel you."
Yeah, this is like full circle. It's like healing the inner child that she once tore up inside me. Yeah.
It
It
was
makes
good
did you
because
yeah.
I haven't been on like a depressed Lana binge in a while, and
Yeah.
it kind of felt good to be a little bit far away. But I saw girls that were clearly like in the depths of it, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Baby girl, I believe in you. You're gonna get out of this."
You know, there's something really cathartic about going to see a show when you're like in the depths of hell. I was actually thinking about Made in America last year was when I went to see Bad Bunny, and like literally the day before was the day like I found out this dude was like lying to me, and I was just like, Betha! Like it was extra personal. It felt right to be there.
Yeah, so I would 10 out of 10 go back to. I honestly am gonna go back to Chicago because I fuck with that city so tough. Like, super cool. We love a city with hella brown people. It just
Hmm.
feels nice and comfortable and like dope. Everyone was really chill and nice.
Yeah.
Um, so 10 out of 10 recommend. What have you been up to?
There's been a lot going
I
on in
know.
this side of the world. So when we last chatted, I got the opportunity to have a little pop up in the Lower East Side with one of my friends, and it was super fun. But I just like I didn't have any stock because usually I make like custom outfits or like things for festivals. So this was the first time that I like kind of got to sit down and make like a little pretend store, which turns out working in merchandising for 4 years I had a good plan. I had a good path of action, and it was a really good experience. Once I did it, it got the ball rolling. Like I guess I never really thought about just making clothes to make clothes because there's something about that that's like it can create waste, but that also just led to me acquiring fabric, and I needed to let it go. So yeah, I was in a flow where like 2 weeks all I did was sew and like work and like try to be a human being. Um, and there was something good about that. I think I'm in a good place. I already booked another one. I'm gonna be in
Woo!
Brooklyn. Yeah, at another pop up. I'll post about it in a few weeks. So I'm just really excited. I feel like I've entered this like new stage of my life and I am just like looking forward to see like where it goes. I will say though, another thing that has happened is that Well, I made a little TikTok like a few months ago, of going to dinner with my friends. One of my roommates, she works at this like pop up restaurant at this all members club in Bushwick. They have like this warehouse where they're setting up like a bunch of stuff, and they have like they have friends and family day. So she invited me. We went. It was a really cool like vibe experience. So I made a little TikTok. The little TikTok did really well. And people on TikTok, even with their hate, they tend to be pretty nice. Because I think it's like the younger people, and the younger people tend to be nicer to you than like old people for some reason. And then it got picked up by some account, New York account, and they asked me if they could put it on Instagram. I thought, yeah, whatever. I didn't really I thought it'd be the same thing. Like, I might get some hate. Turns out, like, I say espresso. I say espresso. I say a lot of English words wrong. Like, people know this about me, whatever. Oh, my holy shit. I did not know that. Well, they collaborated with me. So it goes on my feed. I get to see every comment that people post on that post. And I have almost regretted that because, whoa, people, it's been espresso gate. Like, do you know how many people are like, you dumb bitch, like it's pronounced espresso. And then so I knew that one was coming. What I did, then people, obviously they're like, you fucking gentrifier, like, you stupid piece of shit, go back to Manhattan. Oh yeah, like, but people came for me, right? And then my favorite ones were like, I would slit my throat if I had your voice. And I was like, oh, I should really send you the link to my podcast.
Like, 151 episodes, baby.
Yeah, so like people really started like bullying me online, and I was like, oh my god. But you know what? Like, they say it's lonely at the top. No. I'm totally kidding, but like, I just did not expect this level of like cyberbully energy, because I hadn't had that since I was like 17, where people like, you know, we get a comment here and there for the podcast, whatever, but like, yeah, this was something else. And I didn't reply to that many comments, but like here and there, I was just like, English isn't my first language. Like, I say a lot of words wrong, and I'm not sorry about it. I'm gonna keep doing that. And like, I don't know. I think most people just like assume because I grew up in Seattle surrounded by white people, so I talk like them, that I'm like American, and that like, I don't know, like I'm infiltrating a lot of spaces. I think they didn't know that like, oh, my roommate works there. Like, I'm doing this so she can get really great tips. I like that restaurant. I feel like if she wins, we all win. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it was interesting to see, you know, the assumptions that people were making about me. But I will say, like, some people came through. Like, the girlies were bullying back. Like, they were coming from these like Midwest like bold men that were like calling me a hoe. Oh yeah, like it was the whole works, because at the end of my TikTok I like kind of have some thirst traps, you know what I mean, because it was my TikTok. Like, I didn't expect it to do what it did. So whatever, like, stay mad, but like I really bothered some people.
Girl, are you drinking cold? That's cold? You have a fucking problem. That's cold brew concentrate. You're not supposed to drink that straight. You're supposed to dilute that with water.
There's some water in here. I didn't like.
Okay.
I'm not drinking the whole thing.
Well, I don't know.
Relax. It's just a little sip here and there to just keep the vibe up. Keep the vibe.
Oh, yeah. Jesus Christ. Well, we have quite a controversial episode. No, we don't have it is controversial. No, it's not. It shouldn't be controversial, but it might be. Considering our Facebook comments, it's probably going to pop off. Let's make someone's grandpa
I'm ready.
Upset.
Let's get into it. I've been noticing just a lot of talk, even with the cyberbully thing and like the overall internet. People got a lot of opinions. And right now, like, Snow White is like, you know, been in production. And I've been seeing some of like the comments that have to do with like her role and how Disney is like trying to change essentially like Disney princesses being in love to like Disney independent princess. And I thought that was really interesting, right? Because also like with the Barbie movie, there's just been a lot of like energy surrounding this like, the F word, the one that people are scared of, feminism.
Feminism. It's funny when Berenice pitched the F word, I was like, which one? Like, because there's some bad ones that we shouldn't say, but feminism isn't one of those. But it seems to be. It's getting like a really bad rep right now,
Yeah.
and it is confusing and honestly upsetting in my opinion.
Yeah, because feminism, like, I don't even know how people have just taken that and misconstrued it that. Like, to me, right? Like, this is what I think it means. Feminism just means that you want to be equal to your peers, to men. You just want to sit in an equal playing field. Not higher, not lower. Just right at the same. The same.
The core of feminism is believing that like all humans should have the same rights and be treated equally regardless of their gender or gender expression. And I feel like if you're not on board with that, you're a fucking piece of shit. Okay? If you feel that that certain people should be treated less than just because of their gender, I'm not on board with that. I think we should all be treated equally. I don't know what the argument is for people to be treated less than. Either way. Yeah. I don't want men to be treated less than women. I don't want women to be treated less than men. I feel like everyone should be on an equal playing field. And this means like equal opportunities and equal pay,
equal rights, equal treatment in society, right? Access to health care, autonomy of your own body. Well, I think what happens is that people sometimes grow up thinking that this is already at play, right? Like, well, women can vote. Like, I don't know what the issue is. Baby, there's more to it than that, right? I think like sometimes when you come from a place of privilege, the things that you don't have to think about, you don't think about them. But like as a woman of color, right? I grew up with a really different perspective of the world than, let's say, a white man. I just did. And I'm not saying, like, I'm not faulting him. I'm not faulting anybody for growing up with a different experience. They didn't get to choose that. I didn't get to choose it either. But I did grow up a little different, and that made me aware of some of the things that women had to go through in the basis of the fact that we were considered property. We were considered less than in the past, right? And that's something that I think it's hard for people to grasp. They're like, and it's the same thing with like racism. They're like, well, they were given equal rights. And it's like, yeah, but the fact that at one point in time, those rights were not guaranteed and they weren't given at all. They were treated less than. It takes a while for society and everything else to catch up, right? When you're already here and we're starting from here. And like, you're still going up and we're still catching up. So there has to be action for us to be able to get there. And some people I think really just like overlook that aspect.
And also having the same rights on paper doesn't mean that completely eradicates all of the oppression that someone experiences. Like, just because the Civil Rights Act was passed doesn't mean that Black people were automatically treated better in society. No. And honestly, when I look at statistics when it comes to like, sexual violence and domestic abuse and, the perpetrators and victims, though the victims are predominantly women, that makes me really sad, right? And it makes me we need to work on making sure that people are treated equally and treated fairly in all areas, in actuality, not just on paper. I think something about, you talked about Snow White and the Barbie movie, but specifically with Snow White, and something that's just so strange to me is like when we talk about new stories, it's like seen as like, oh, they're trying to change things. But it's like we tell new stories all the time. Like, I don't understand why we're having a problem with Snow White being different. Like, this is just a different story, right? And like the fact that you're like, why do you have such a negative visual reaction to a story not being about a woman being in love? Because that's the story you want. That's the story that you are told is like the fun story. You don't want this new story of a woman being powerful. You might want to think on that.
And I think, like, yeah, there's duality, right? Like, no one is losing access to the original Snow White. It's a classic. It's been around, I think, since like the 30s. It's still up on Disney Plus. I don't think they're gonna take that out. It's a most watched bestseller. You know, like, she's gonna stay around. And I think, like, still having access to that and having a new story, like, you can have two different ends of the spectrum, and they could even come up with another story where she gets to be in love and independent. Like, you know, like, that is, we can have multiple things. Those things aren't, we can't, like, I think there's a misconception where it's like, if you choose a career, you can't choose love. You can have both of those things. But in society, we've had a lot of things surrounding love and being tied to somebody else in order for us to be happy. And sometimes it's nice to have something that's like, oh, there wasn't a man involved at all in this film. And that's okay too. That's okay. They're both okay.
And that's another thing. It's like, let's be quite frank. There are a million stories about women being in love. Rom-coms is a whole segment of movies, right? You're not losing any movies about a woman being in love. You're just adding a different story. And then the fact that it's Disney, it's like, maybe Disney wants to do something different. Maybe they're fucking bored, okay? Maybe their creators are like, I'm done telling the same story. I want to do something different.
They're losing the Disney magic. The Disney magic is still very much alive. Like, they have tons of movies. There's so much Disney magic. I think something that also happens is that media reflects a lot of the things that are going on in society. And you have to do that because people grow, because we evolve as human beings and we become more complex. And those are good things. Like, I don't think those are bad things, to have more things to think about, to have people being encouraged and have these questions raised when you're younger. Because yes, that is when you're impressionable. But like, you being independent doesn't kill magic. It just allows you to see life on your own.
And also, I think sometimes people just like to bitch and complain about things, because let me tell you, The Little Mermaid was about her being in love, right? And you motherfuckers had a problem with that because she was black. Okay, so it's like, at some point, I'm like so over hearing people complain about what the fuck ever they're complaining about, because they will find anything to pick apart with any movie if it involves a woman. And like, kind of transitioning to, I honestly get so frustrated with Taylor Swift hate, because I feel like it's like predominantly because people are like, they're just discrediting her because her audience is predominantly women. Like, oh, she has the best-selling tour of all time. Oh, it doesn't fucking matter. She's a pop artist. She's not that talented. All of her songs sound the same. And she gets so much criticism, and then she talks about the criticism that she gets, and then it's like, oh, see, she's being a victim. But it's like, but wait, you guys don't give her, like, there's a lot of people that don't give her any credit, even though she's incredibly hardworking. You can't tour like that if you're not a fucking hard worker.
And I don't know how many other artists do this, but she is giving a shit ton of money to charities and like nonprofits in the cities that she's touring. Like, crazy amounts of it, like money she's like giving back to the community. That's like actually like pretty special.
Yeah, she gave $55 million worth of bonuses to her workers, and that included her crew members, the truck people that hauled all of her stuff, her dancers, everyone that was involved, that most people don't give, because when you see a Taylor Swift show, I don't think a lot of people think about the behind the scenes people that make that possible, but she gave $55 million. That's literally completely unheard of. And I just think it like ties into this thing where it's like, anytime a woman does anything, someone has some fucking hate to say about it. And then when we say like, hey, this is an example of how women are treated differently in society, people are like, no, you're not. And they kind of gaslight her and gaslight us into thinking that we're not treated differently. These are fair criticisms, but they're not criticisms that men ever get. no one ever questions if Michael Jackson actually wrote his songs. But people are like, oh, I don't think it's possible for her to write her songs, or Nicki Minaj, or whoever.
I mean, it's true.
It is
It's
true.
And I think a lot of people are like really scared of like the word like independent, being an independent woman has also gotten a bad rep because if like you're independent, then like for some reason that like you automatically hate men. Um no, I think like when I have been sometimes I get frustrated and I'll be like I hate men. Do I really hate men? No. What do I mean? I hate when men lie to me. I hate, like, is it fair for me to generalize that? No. I hate misogyny. I hate when people be acting all sorts of random. I hate when, like, there's toxic masculinity in play and women are getting beaten. Like, those are the things that I hate, right? So I don't really hate men, but I do hate the fact that like there's still a culture that allows for misogyny and there's a lot of institutions that allow for that culture to carry over. And I think like in a way those are the things that I hate. And sometimes people take that as like, oh, you hate men. I do not hate men, okay? Me being independent, me wanting to be alone, me not allowing for men to treat me a certain way doesn't mean that I hate men. It just means that like I'm just not going to put up with shit I know I don't have to put up with.
And I think that when I talk, well, a lot of times when people kind of have some pushback about feminism, I honestly really feel like feminism would benefit men in the long run. Like, what some of the reasons why I have trouble with, I guess in my past, I feel like there's oftentimes because men have been treated so differently in society for so long that once you come into your life, your therapist, mother, lover, friend, everything, because like the patriarchy doesn't just hurt women, it hurts men because it tells you not to talk about your feelings. It tells you, it doesn't prepare you to take care of yourself, right? Because that's like your mom's job and then it becomes your wife's job. So then you're not independent. Like I think a lot of men are not as independent as they probably ought to be. They don't know how to take care of themselves. They don't know how to emotionally talk about their feelings. They can't communicate any emotions besides angry or mad when I know that men are very complex and have a full range of emotions, and women are taught at a very young age how to communicate with each other about all of their emotions, but very often men are told, talked down to if they talk about, like, I'm sad or I'm upset, they're, like, talked down to and saying that's not an emotion that a man should have. And so, like, for me, I'm thinking, dude, we need feminism so that we can raise everybody up so we can all be more full human beings.
You're allowed to be vulnerable. I mean, I talk a lot about like crying on the train. And I remember having a conversation with a man, and he was like, yeah, it's like common to see girls cry on the train, but like, if I'm upset, I can't cry on the train because people are going to be looking at me all sorts of weird. But I was like, but you, at the end of the day, who cares what people think? But I do see where like obviously women are more accustomed to like sharing their feelings. We're taught that at an early age. And it sucks that like, as a society, not only do you feel like you can't share your feelings, but you also feel judged by others if you choose to do so. And that sucks. And I think like at the basis of all the isms, like racism, sexism, all of those, it's the notion that like it hurts us all. It's not just hurting the people that are getting the main discrimination. It is hurting everybody as a society because everybody has different levels of how those things affect us and the expectations that they set on us and the biases and the hate, and there's just like so many things, right? So looking into that is never a bad thing, like challenging those notions and not being scared to look into things like feminism. I remember probably it was like when I moved to New York was the first time that I ever felt like pushback on that, because like in Seattle people are kind of with it, but I will say some people in Seattle it's like fake, like
it's the weird what they think they should say kind of thing.
Yeah, and they don't really believe it, and then once you dig a little you see like, oh, they're like kind of like a nice misogynist. Like it's really weird. The culture over there is very like passive. So it's like you get all those things, but they're like layered in there. And they only come out if they're triggered per se. And then like in New York, the culture is more, I would say, like aggressive. So people tend to have that pushback like right away. Very interesting. Very interesting. And demographics are very interesting.
I don't know. I think that there is like a misunderstanding of feminism or what it means to be a feminist. And like, I remember this one time, like, I was, this guy at a bar, we're talking, and he's like, oh yeah, like, I don't buy girls drinks because I like believe in feminism. Like, you should buy me drinks. And I was like,
that's not what we mean. But
I was like,
that's not it at all.
I was like, I'm like confused by that. And it's like, well, if you want equal pay, then you have to pay for drinks. Like, okay. So like, yikes. Like,
oh, got it. Okay, that's the trade-off. You make more money than me because you're buying me drinks? That's why?
Yeah. Okay. I was just like,
I'll take the higher pay. I'll take the higher pay and I'll buy my own drinks.
Yeah, and I'm like, I think we're a little bit confused. And it's like, and also when people are like, oh, well, sometimes we always talk about how men get things, but like women get certain things that men don't get. Like women get in free to clubs and men can't do that. So there are things that women get that men don't get. And I'm like, bro, but that's because like women's bodies are being commodified by clubs to sell more drinks and get more men into clubs, right? Because men go where women are.
Yeah.
It's not a bonus. Like, this is a business decision.
It is literally capitalism taking advantage of the fact that the way society works.
Yeah.
You're a player. Like, you're a chess piece, baby. Like,
and it very much feels like that, too, when you go into a club for free. Like, it's like, hey, sit at this table, look pretty, have fun. They even arrange you so that you, like, look the most appealing. It's weird.
Of course. That's why there's doormen. That's why they don't allow certain women in. Like, at the end of the day, they want men to go spend money, and they want a specific look for a girl that they know the men that they are allowing or that are going to be there are going to like.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business. Yeah, it's very interesting because there's so many ways that, like, that's still present in our society, like even with like in the medical world. Like if I had a husband and I wanted to get my tubes tied or like a hysterectomy, there's still practices like your husband has to sign off on that. What the fuck? Like, what does he got to do with my body? Nothing. Okay, people are still getting like the history of a Puerto Rican woman, of indigenous women getting sterilizations without their consent, but they're giving birth, like that's still a thing. If you want to look into that, like there's a lot of information out there. I think there's just like people don't really know the things that go on because they're not massively talked about in our everyday society. But like in a lot of ways, like we're still not equal, and I don't think we should stop talking about it.
I mean, this is actually a huge issue, is that this kind of ties back to like women don't know what they want, or women can't make decisions. Like, I think something that has still upsets me to this day is kind of the underlying misogyny that happened during Hillary Clinton's election that nobody likes to talk about, and honestly really are pretty combative with me about, because I lay out a pretty fair case that like, if she was a man, I'm positive she would have won. Like, the only reason, I think one of the main reasons that she lost is because she's a woman. And people are like, well, no, it's because she's a Clinton and da-da-da-da-da. No. I get a lot of pushback about that. But a lot of things people are saying is like, oh, well, look she got mad. She can't make decisions. Do you want someone who can get mad like that to make decisions? When she wasn't getting mad, it was just a perception of what she was saying. Or, you would have someone literally like denigrate her character and she would have to correct them, and then it would be taken and foreseen as a certain way, right? And that kind of like bleeds into the other parts where it's like a woman cannot ask to get long-term birth control like sterilization without like basically getting a psych eval. Like, they're like, well, you might want to have kids one day, or what if your husband wants kids even though you do? A man can go get a vasectomy, no questions asked, basically the same fucking day. They don't have to go through a psych eval because they say they don't want to have kids, right? And it's like, we should be equal, as in you should be able to do what you want with your body. If it doesn't, like, what the fuck does it matter, really?
The only person that needs to worry about her is mate.
Literally, if you make a poor life decision, that's just like you making a poor life decision. That, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand. Yeah. And the thing is also, you can go get your boobs done. You don't have to go through a psych eval to get your boobs done, right?
Right.
And that's like, why is that? Because that's seen as normal, and like, oh, I get why you want to have your boobs done, because you want to be more attractive. Like, duh, that makes sense, you know? But this other big life decision, you're not allowed to make for yourself. It's crazy making.
It is. It really is. It really is. And, you know, I think, like, if you're a man listening to this podcast and you, like, want to talk about it, but you don't know how to, like, you can ask questions. You can ask the internet. But, like, if you're going to ask the internet, please, like, look at where you're getting information from, because you can get in some weird parts of the internet. And people got all sorts of thoughts in there, okay? Or you can also ask a woman in your life, presumably one with, like, that hangs out with other women. You gotta be careful who you hang out with, okay? Because some people be switching it up on you. If you hang out with somebody, let's say 5% of the time, and you have deep conversations, and you have, you know, they're asking you questions and they got thoughts, and you're just like, oh my God, you know, maybe they're hearing me out, they're seeing a different version of the world, they're being perceptive. But then they go hang out with their homies, with their man homies, 95% of the other time, and they're all really got ideals that are rooted in misogyny and use terms like hoe and bitch to talk about women. Yeah, that's who they are. They're not going over to their homie's house to be like, you know what, guys? I have this really deep thought about how we should treat women. That's not what they're doing. I can guarantee you that that's not what they're doing. I can guarantee you that one of their friends is saying some really problematic shit and they're all agreeing with it because there's nobody challenging any change of discourse, and that is who they are. So be careful who you hang out with. I think if also you like those thought-provoking conversations, you're seeking other answers, but you have a really big group of friends like that, you gotta determine who you're gonna be, right? Because at the end of the day, you are who your friends are, and you gotta be accountable for yourself.
I mean, dating is rough, okay? Because, I mean, it is true that women are raising their standards, right? Because we can be financially independent now, which is crazy, because a lot of finding Mr. Right was finding a way out of your house. It was finding financial security and, like, basically setting yourself up for the rest of your life, because women literally could not make the same amount of money as men. So, like, your best bet was to find a man who could make a good amount of money. As that's changing, standards are raising, and it is really tough to find a guy whose values align with you. But let me tell you this, it's better to be single than to settle on values, because it'll creep up. It might be 5 years, it might be 10 years, but I was overhearing conversation at the gym, and she was like, you know what, it's crazy, because I knew when we first started dating that this was, like, going to be an issue, that this was going to be a problem. But then I just kind of let it go, and then it popped up 15 years later, and now I feel like I've, wasted my whole life, right? That's basically what she said. And I was like, damn, I think a lot of us are like, oh, well, he's not an outright bigot, but he might have some controversial views. Babes, it might be, if you care about that, it's going to be a bigger problem down the line. It might take 10 or 20 years, but it'll become a problem.
I think that people can definitely learn and grow. I saw it with, like, I think my ex-boyfriend, his heart was in a good place. Some of his friends were not, and, they age out. You can outgrow people. I think that is possible, but it obviously is going to take work, and that's going to take a toll in your relationship, right? Because you're teaching somebody for free 99. For free 99. And not only are you teaching somebody, but they probably have parents who have those ideals. So you're also teaching their parents, and you got to be around people who might make you uncomfortable most of the time. Is that something you want to take on? Like, that's cool, you're doing the Lord's work. But it's also fair if you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
because that can be exhausting. We do not owe people education. All right, it's awesome if you want to educate and if you find somebody in a learning space. Also, that's a big one. Sometimes when you're hanging out with people and you're trying to get a point across, they have to be in the right place to learn. And if they're not being receptive to what they're saying, like, you're wasting your words, dude. Like, if you already know they're not like vibing with what you're saying, like, I would say like distance yourself for a little bit. If they care about you, maybe they'll come try to find middle ground. But if they don't, then they really never give a fuck. And that's okay. There's other people in the world. People are learning. I've met some great people out there. You should also see how people talk about their moms, how they treat their moms, how their dad treats their moms. I think I can tell you a lot how they're going to treat you, or what they got to say about how their parents' relationship went down. Those are important things. Some turn-ons is my favorite one was I went on a date with this guy. He's like, oh, my dad treats my mom like a princess. Perfect. We love that. We love that. Okay. There's nothing more uncomfortable than like being like with your significant other and having their dad be awful to their mom. And literally being like, are you going to say something or am I? Because literally. I think you just normalize that your dad talks to your mom that way. But that's not normal to me. And I will pop off if you don't say anything. Because it should be making you angry.
You know, which is interesting. I saw this TikTok and I was like, and I read the comments. It was something that I just resonated with so much. When it was like, bro, a lot of us have experiences with people's moms telling us to get out. Like, and I don't think that happens the other way as often. Like, literally where someone's mom is like, hey, they're like their dad. And if I were you, I would get out. I wouldn't. I love my kids, but I would not choose this from me. Like, that's an experience that a lot of women have. That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it is. So beware, be careful. And, you know, like, it's wild because it really, as a Mexican daughter, I don't get away with talking to my parents any sort of way, okay? That was not how I was raised, but I even just spoke with the not correct tone, like there would be repercussions for my actions. And sometimes people, like, American little boys, how they talk to their moms, I'm like, how do you get away with this? That was a big culture shock in this country for me.
Yeah. It is crazy because and that's the thing is that like another universal experience is like people being like, oh, boys are so much easier to raise than girls. It's like, no, it's because you have these crazy unrealistic standards for women and then we don't hold men to the same standards. So of course, if you're not like holding boys accountable in the way that you're holding girls accountable, it's easier to raise them. And then now, you know, I'm like, you get to the age where I'm dating someone, I'm like, oh my God, like, they're going to take too much work. Like, they're way too far away from the fucking finish line for me to take on this emotional labor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. And as women, we also get raised in a society that's misogynist. And like, I think being aware and being okay with that notion is like when people get called like misogynist, they're like, oh my God, like I can't believe you said that, or racist. Like everybody is. We were socialized in a society that is like that. So like the first step to change is acceptance, right? So we all have those biases rooted inside us. So like the only way to really move forward is to accept it and be able to like move from that. Okay, I do have these notions. What are they? And then once you start noticing, you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that thought was rooted in misogyny. But like once you're aware and you're okay with the fact that like maybe you are a little bit of a misogynist, that there's like some of those things going on inside, you're able to notice them, challenge them, and grow as a human being.
And I hate to give homework, but honestly, like reading's kind of some of the easiest way I feel, or I guess a YouTube video would probably be the easiest, but listening to an audiobook or reading is probably a very entry-level way into educating yourself. And I know that like with some of these notions I had about I guess surrounding my own body and how those were kind of like a result of misogyny. I read a book that She Runs with Wolves. I'll put the details down below. But you don't even realize it until you educate yourself on it. So there's like, if you literally research like feminism books or whatever, I don't know. It's easy for you to like,
spooky.
Yeah, spooky. It's easy to find books that aren't even hardcore. There's like it's Brianna Weiss, 101 Essays on Life, I think. But she taps into a lot of these same things about internalized misogyny and also just misogyny in general, and just gaining a new perspective through art, you know, in the way of TV, movies, and books. And it kind of makes me sad when I go and see something like the Barbie movie and I have like an emotional, happy reaction to just a little bit of healing in my heart, but also like, oh, I wish I had this movie as a little girl. Same thing with like The Little Mermaid. Like, I wish I had dude, I'll call myself out. I was Pocahontas for fucking
Me too.
because I was Pocahontas and then I was Mulan because those were the only brown.
Me too.
Yeah, those were the only non-white Disney characters that I had. So I go and see like Little Mermaid and I'm sitting next to this little black girl who now gets to see herself in a Disney movie, and I get to see Barbie, and I loved Barbie growing up, and this is an amazing story about like the patriarchy, feminism, but really just like fucking girl power and what it's like to be a woman in this society. And it just heals a little bit of part of me. And I wish that people could share in that like beauty instead of being like, this is fucking liberal propaganda bullshit. It's honestly sad that you watch a piece of art and you're mad about it.
I mean, and I bet, like, back in the day, all right, people were doing the same shit when we were growing up. Because that's how society moves, right? That's how you move forward. There's no way that that's bad. I'm sorry, but, like, even with what happened in Montgomery, like, Alabama, that is the first time I have ever seen police officers behind, like, a group of black people that like white people are trying to jump. Okay, that is the first time. Like society is changing, but in order for that to happen, like things like this need to happen. And like, you know, like sometimes you just gotta mellow out. Like everything's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Woosah.
And baby, I've met young people. I met a bunch of young people at Lollapalooza. We're only going forward, babes. So be on the right side of history with this shit. Do you want to be looking back 20 years being like, I protested the Barbie movie? I hope the fuck not. Like, how embarrassing.
How embarrassing.
Like, it's a cutesy little fucking PG-13 movie for the girls. Like, we love it.
All right, well, that's all of the thoughts I've got, all right? I gotta go to the gym and shit.
Oh, me too. See you to the gym.
To the gym. I haven't been there in a minute, but I got some new gym crushes, so I gotta go check on my... gym crush.
TTYL, gotta go to the gym. Gotta check in with some dudes.
I'm kidding. I hope none of them listen to this. All right. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, please go subscribe on whatever listening platform and then on the other ones too. And go follow us on all our social medias. We're on Instagram at thanks4your concern. I'm at Berenice ADSM.
And I'm at Ella L Tutor.
Toodles, bye.